I saw Everything Everywhere All at Once while on a plane flying out of Portland. It was well after all of the hype, all the discussions about multiverse fatigue and how to do it correctly. I think it was even after a viral tweet where someone got mad at the movie for being like, hey, this IRS agent is a person too, and then further defended herself by basically admitting to being anti empathy, which was wild to see. It's one of the few pieces of art that has made me really tear up. Some scenes made me look around and make sure no one was staring at my screen while on the plane. It's in my top 10 films at the moment. It's an important movie to me. You know what else is important to me? Hole. 1. Bagel hole. I know, you thought I was a bottom. In Everything Everywhere All at Once, the villain is a multiversal variant of Joy, the daughter of the main character, Evelyn. She experiences every universe, the everything and the everywhere, all at once. That's a bit hard to conceptualize, but easy to buy into in a work of fiction. It's the sort of thing that might break one's brain to experience. She comes to the conclusion that nothing matters. She takes everything and puts it on a bagel, and this bagel opens up a black hole that threatens everything. She intends to use it to kill herself. Nothing in the multiverse could ever fulfill Joy. Let's talk about lack and bagels. I'm going to quote extensively here from a book I'm working on entitled Impossible Kinks, where I explore scientifically impossible fantasies. Why do that? Because this brief section in the book was partially inspired by Everything Everywhere. Jacques Lacan, after committing the mortal sin of being French, talked about another sin, the ancestral drive that supposedly links mother to son. Ew. However, he and Freud may both be perverts, but neither is actually suggesting everyone is consciously going around ogling family portraits. The drive is rather a desire for the womb. The womb is the space wherein all our needs are taken care of without a need for language. Because the archetypal fetus does not require anything which it lacks, for it lacks not, it cannot develop desire. Consciousness is born from removal. Humans are sentient beings, which is to say that we are defined through our conscious acknowledgement of our needs and lacks. To need for something, to lack for it, is fundamentally frustrating. It produces stress and anxiety. So then in the womb, we are unconscious. Then we are born and we become conscious. In this exact moment, we recognize that something has been lost. There is a fulfillment we have lost. However, we were not aware of this fulfillment when we had it. We cannot conceptualize what it's truly like to experience. What we experience instead is the lack of this thing. Lacan, for a time, called this thing das Ding. I cannot remotely stand reading the gibberish of people who like to talk about Lacan, however, so I'm not going to make you do that either. I want to instead suggest a simpler way to conceptualize this, a way connected to everything everywhere all at once. Humanity is a self-conscious bagel. We are defined by the hole at our center, like hollows in bleach. Because we're self-conscious, we hate that hole. Like a greedy bottom, we want it filled. If it's truly permanently filled, though, we cease being a bagel because the bagel is defined by its hole. You fill it in, it becomes a bun, a burger bap. You fill it, you cease being human. Fundamentally, we are driven toward fulfillment of our hole, our lack, the achievement of which would result in the end of our personhood. It is pleasurable to fill a hole. If you know, you know. The chase for whatever it is we're missing then is bliss because it feels like the process of filling. Or at least, it's as close as we're capable of getting to bliss. Because we are bagels and bagels must have a hole, no matter what we plug inside ourselves, we will always experience lack. You can pile everything on a bagel, and you still won't find true, unending fulfillment. You will still be human, and therefore you will still be a bagel. The hole will remain. The attempt to achieve the thing which we lack will never be truly successful. It's an unending loop. It's an exercise in absurdity. To chase desire is to be Sisyphus pushing the boulder. Sublimation in this sense is the elevation of some object, literarily speaking, to the dignity of the thing. That's a real annoying sentence, I know, I'm sorry. Sublimation, for Lacan, is when we decide something would be fulfilling to obtain. Getting married will fill the hole at the center of my being is an example both of sublimation and of a promise for a sexually active marriage. It isn't merely the process of desiring something. We all desire things that we don't consider to be the thing. I desire, for instance, to own every form of saxophone ever invented. I do not think achieving this would bring me fulfillment. For it to be sublimation, we must conceptualize the object of our desire to be that which will satisfy us completely, that which will fulfill us, will rid us of the whole, will bring about our annihilation. Owning and mastering every type of saxophone is the meaning of my life would be sublimation of the saxophone. No more book stuff, I promise. Back to the movie. What happens when you realize that there is nothing you can sublimate to the dignity of the thing that will ultimately fill the bagel? There is nothing that will fix you forever. In fact, when you put everything everywhere all at once on your bagel, you don't wind up fulfilled. You wind up with a destructive hole that consumes everything. In her original universe, Evelyn wants to be anything. She has so many interests. She wants to sing. In a universe where she's a professional singer, she finds that she is still unhappy. Everything she pursues, just like her daughter, cannot stop the emptiness she sometimes feels. How often are you aware of the whole? What happens when you realize that it is impossible to truly fill? Typically, you come to the conclusion of my metaphor in the conclusion the joy variant reaches. Fulfillment can only be had through a return to the womb or death, which ultimately are the same thing. It's annihilation. I think it'd be interesting to have a film course discussion about Everything Everywhere and Alex Garland's Annihilation. It'd just be fun. Joy doesn't jump straight to death, though. The core of the film's plot can be seen as her pseudo-womb reintegration attempt. Her obsession becomes her mother. If she can only find one version of Evelyn who sees things like she does, who understands her, then maybe that'll be enough. Not to stop, she's too gone to stop, but it'll be enough to go peacefully. I think she knows underneath her chase that finding such an Evelyn will also fail to fulfill her, because fulfillment, true fulfillment, the end of lack, the end of despair, the end of need and want, is impossible. Filling your own hole is an impossible kink. This Lacanian draining, whirlpooling into the hole of annihilation can also be framed as an existentialist crisis, struggled against, that leads to nihilism, and where nihilism always ends, destruction. To say that nothing can possibly fix you completely for all time is the same thing to some people as saying there is no such thing as meaning. You realize the universe doesn't have ordering or a plan or inherent meaning. This questioning of purpose, this glimpse of the sea of nihilism is the existential crisis. There are a few ways to fail it, and nihilism is the worst. Nothing means anything. Nothing can ever get better. You can no more invent meaning than observe it. The hole can never be filled, and you can never convince yourself it can be after you know such a thing. You know the hole will always be there mocking you like a bratty bottom. Nihilism is a demon twink. It breaks you and everyone around you. For a moment, Evelyn is seduced by the hole. Relatable. She embraces nihilism and harms everyone around her in every universe. The nihilist who still lives is the nihilist hoping to be convinced they are wrong. Joy wishes to be wrong. That is why she chases Evelyn. The true nihilist only exists in the moment they accept death and chase it. When edgy people online claim nihilism, they're typically wrong, and sometimes they're aware of this and are lying. Nihilism is used as an excuse by many to chase things they are interested in while telling themselves that they are not interested in these things that they are chasing. They're going after meaning, meaning that they often already embrace as meaningful. Joy chases Evelyn because if there's an Evelyn who can see things her way, perhaps that version of her mother might be able to convince her of meaning of some sort, might see something that she doesn't, feel something she hasn't, hear something, smell something, taste something, anything, anywhere, any second. There are only brief moments that make any sense. To say that is to admit there are islands in the sea of nihilism. It's to admit you wish to cling to land. It's to whisper that you long to be saved. It's not merely that Evelyn might fulfill joy, it's that she might convince her there's some use to living, even when you can't be completely fixed, even when the very nature of humanity, the fact that we are self-conscious bagels, cannot be destroyed or wholly ignored. And she gets it. Punching nihilism in the hole isn't just the sort of legal, intense art payment processors, credit cards, banks, and conservative interest groups are trying to censor and destroy. It's the whole plot of the film. 2. funny bagel. That was a super funny section. I'm very funny. Everyone always says that about me. After being hit with one of my beautiful jokes, one of my college friends gave me the rave review. Jared, I have faith that one day you'll learn what a joke is. Everything Everywhere All at Once is an actually funny film. A lot of its humor comes from how weird it is, how random. Commercials when I was growing up almost all fell into two categories: sexual or random, as Tumblr would decry it. This is absurdist comedy. Absurd is a more accurate label than random. Excepting for religious outcomes and subgenres of the following, there are 4 responses to glimpsing the sea of nihilism: reject it, become a nihilist, become an existentialist, become an absurdist. Existentialists and absurdists are quite similar in that they both acknowledge the sea of nihilism and the lack of inherent meaning. To oversimplify things a little bit and potentially piss off philosophers, like, go off, existentialists believe that one can find or create a sort of meaning through the self. No Exit is existentialist horror because each of the characters can only conceive of themselves, exist, find meaning through the conceptions the others have of them. The absurdist, meanwhile, finds a sort of meaning through the struggle in spite of the lack of meaning. We imagine Sisyphus happy because he can choose not to give in to despair and rather find joy at his little resistance against the fate the gods desired for him. In absurdist theater, we often create meaning from the seeming lack of meaning. A lot of the genre is based around wordplay humor. There might be nonsensical plots, characters, dialogue, and there are plenty of juxtapositions. The Old Spice commercial where the dude's like, look over there, look over here, I'm on a horse, was funny because it was surprising. In the lack of meaning in the juxtapositions, we found humor. We found joy. In Everything Everywhere, there is a universe where people have hot dog fingers. That's a funny, absurd concept. There's a fight with dildos. There's a Ratatouille chef moment. There are googly eyes. The bagel black hole doomsday thing makes sense as a metaphor, but strictly speaking is patently absurd. The very nature of a multiverse is absurd. That's why the film is weird. It's why it's crazy. It's why it's funny. It's absurd. But why though? Because the film itself is a rejection of nihilism. That's the plot. The plot is Lacanian lack, whose acknowledgement leads to an existential crisis, which leads to nihilistic despair. But up to there, that could be done through a serious, depressing, bleak film that ends on a dour note that sticks with you like a disease until your last breath. But the film does not embrace annihilation. It rejects it, and rejects it via the embrace of absurdism. It's Evelyn's statement that despite everything, she would always want these moments with her daughter, that she chooses her and chooses to find joy and meaning in joy, that saves everything, everywhere, all at once. It's an absurdist conclusion. Thus, the film had to be funny and weird and random. As Sondheim once said, content dictates form. The moment the Daniels decided to land on an absurdist conclusion, the film had to be what it is. It's not to shock. It wasn't to be weird for weirdness' sake, not that there's anything wrong with art that aims to be either. It's because elsewise the message would fail. The bagel would eat us all. 3. Bagel love. There are ultimately 3 languages of love: the poetic, the violent, and the dietary. Poetic love isn't merely that which is in poetry, because that also encompasses the violent and the dietary. We can consider poetic love to be the saccharine, the aspirational, the devotional. It is the love of metaphor, simile, and God. You could perhaps label it the divine language of love. The violent language tends to be what we use when discussing physical acts: bang, penetrate, choke, take, own, mine, yours, meld, melt. You could call this the erotic language of love. Lastly, we have the dietary. Sugar, sweetie, eat, devour, consume, cutie pie, tall drink of water, mouth-watering. Love is a hunger. It's mutual consumption. You could call this the cannibalistic language of love. Vor is an impossible kink that aims to satisfy both the cannibalistic language of love and the Lacanian nature of lack. Joy places everything on the bagel not merely because the bagel is a good metaphor for human nature and lack, nor because there's such a thing as an everything bagel, so like, wordplay connection. It's because bagels are meant to be eaten. In order to fill the hole, you must take das Ding and place it inside you. You must consume it. You must vor the object of your desire. She places everything on the bagel to try to consume it all and find something that can satisfy her unending hunger. If she did mass vor, she thinks, maybe she'd be satisfied. But then she discovered what many into vor discover, from my understanding. When push comes to shove, everyone ends as someone else's prey. She longs to be prey to the bagel. But before that, let's talk about returning to the womb. There's a form of vor that's about that, unbirth, I think it's called. It's a literal return, though not necessarily to the mother of the prey. In many cases, this leads to a form of digestion, meaning dissolution of the self, meaning, as with Lacanian lack, annihilation. Joy looks for Evelyn because she wants a love that consumes her. She wants to be fulfilled. She wants to return to the womb. But it's impossible. It's an impossible kink, even in an absurd universe. Vor is not real. It's not actual possible love. Love is when Evelyn tells Joy that she will always choose her in these brief moments that make any sense. Love is when Wayman says, in another life, I would have really liked just doing laundry and taxes with you. Love is how Evelyn embraces the IRS lady. Love is the many moments of forgiveness. Love, the film says, does not have inherent meaning because it's part of everything. So it was one of the things on the bagel. It was meant to be consumed and to consume. Yet despite that, love is really the only thing that can save you from the sea of nihilism, because it is what is most worth choosing to give meaning to. It is what connects a mother and her child, not the womb, not lack, not even blood. Love is not consumption, it is not vor, it is not violence, and it's not poetry. Love is choosing someone, something, and deciding it has meaning, deciding it is worth living. Love is the rejection of nihilistic despair. Love is the whole of the law. That's why love is persevering, because it's the only thing that keeps us from being eaten by the bagel. Importantly, the film says, your choice to give meaning to love, to insist on it, to cling to it, is what gives others the permission to live and love and stay. Even if you do not find meaning, you are the meaning someone else chooses to believe in. Are you enough of a massive bagel hole to destroy their meaning? We cannot choose annihilation. We cannot choose to fill the bagel. I cried more when I watched it a second time. If you yourself have ever struggled with depression, or are loving someone, whether a partner, a family member, or a friend who has struggled or still struggles with intense mental health issues, or forbid, both of you do, I think it'll make you feel seen, it'll make you cry, and it'll make you hope. It helps you take a step away from the whole. That's a lovely thing for a film to do. Howdy, and thank you so much for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, share if you're feeling saucy. You can join me over on Patreon if you would like, wherein you'll get these videos and others early. You'll also get to have some fun behind the scenes access to some of my art projects, some more personal vlogging style content, and you'll just get to support me, and we'll get to chat about art a whole bunch, which is what I love to do most. You can go over to Amazon Smashwords or wherever you get your ebooks and purchase a copy of my poetry collections, Butterfly Snuff, and A Museum of Art and Eggs, both of which are also available in paperback and hardback. I have a second channel where I'm just reading through a bunch of public domain stuff for the fun of it and through my own work, so you'll get readings of these poetry collections and some short stories and some longer form fiction when I get around to it, and some plays. And I have a third channel where I'm uploading my music and art instead of having it all clog up this channel. So go support those if you feel like it. That content, a lot of it will also be getting uploaded early to Patreon. So if you want all of my stuff in one convenient space, Patreon is the place to go, which would be really cool of you, you know? I hope you have a fantastic day. Do not be rude in the comments. Do not go and harass anybody. And I will see you next time.